I'm obviously not a millennial. And today I've invited a couple of FinTech entrepreneurs who have both built businesses around creating financial products, financial advice, and mobile apps for millennials. They're going to share with us some insights about not only their own company and how they're building their own products. They're also going to share some insights on millennial behaviors and preferences based on some of their experiences to date. So we have with us Chris Britt, who is the co-founder and CEO of Chime, a mobile bank account and Visa debit card. He was previously Senior Vice President of Green Dot. He also launched and managed general purpose prepaid debit business for Visa and was one of the first executives at ComScore. And he works with chronically ill kids and provides free lessons in arts and athletics. And we have Joseph Prather, who is founder and CEO of Dyme, another really interesting company providing help to millennials who need help with saving and spending decisions and so forth. He's a former concert pianist, music producer, and media licensing executive based in San Francisco. I'm going to kick things off with a look at some of the recent research that's been put out there. There seems like there's been a lot of research done recently on millennial habits, both financial and non-financial. I think the common wisdom is that a lot of millennials still live with their parents. They have a lot of student debt and they're underemployed. And I might ask our other two speakers later if those bits of common wisdom that do come through in some of the studies are really true. Some of the different things about them, they are buying cars, so obviously auto loans would be appropriate for them. They're renting houses rather than buying, so at this point, obviously mortgages would not be as much of a big sell for them. No surprise, they're addicted to smartphones. About 14% say they would not do business with a company that doesn't have a mobile site or app, and 42% say they have switched companies based on the mobile capabilities that the company offered. They are stressed about money, and about 35% receive help from their parents or other family members. So there might be some sort of crowdsourcing component possible there with this cohort. They seem to have a lack of confidence around money. Only 17% say they're confident in their knowledge of finance versus 33% who say they're confident in their knowledge of food. This one surprised me. According to a Bank of America study that came out last week, they spend 3 hours a week working out, and they spend 3 hours a week with their finances, which really surprised me. I don't know what they're spending that 3 hours on, but it does seem like they're willing to spend some time with their mobile apps and their online banking. Yet only 40% feel that they are financially fit. And they're expected to inherit about $41 trillion over the next few decades. They're kind of on the fence about their bank. Almost half see themselves staying with their current bank over the next few years, and almost half say they're open to switching for better products and services. And they don't seem to have a lot of fondness for their bank. 71% say they'd rather go to the dentist than listen to what banks are saying. Eek. So now I'd like to turn things over to Chris Britt, who is going to tell us about his company Chime and what they're doing for millennials. Chris?
Thanks, Penny. It's great to be here today. As Penny mentioned, my most recent background has been the time that I spent at Visa and then at Green Dot. Green Dot, as many of you know, really invented the retail distribution of prepaid debit cards at physical stores. And the opportunity that I saw in creating Chime was to use the emerging stores, the app stores with Apple and Google as a way to distribute products, financial products, not just to underserved and unbanked consumers, but also to younger consumers who have a variety of options as it relates to their banking services. So what we are doing here is trying to reinvent the bank account from the ground up with a mobile-first service to meet the needs of younger consumers who increasingly are managing just about every aspect of their life on their smartphone. And they're looking for control over their money. We did some research recently to try to understand millennials and the attitudes and behaviors we saw. And, first and foremost, we found that overwhelmingly they're dissatisfied with traditional banks and that they prefer to spend with debit as opposed to credit. And the primary reason for that is for control. Many of these younger consumers saw the aftermath of the financial crisis and saw their parents get into trouble, and they want to avoid the same mistakes. So we've designed Chime to meet the needs of putting consumers in control. With Chime, you get an FDIC-insured bank account, a Visa debit card with no monthly fees, no overdrafts, no in-network ATM fees at over 24,000 locations. So at Chime, we think there's an opportunity to go beyond what traditional banks have offered and to do more than just eliminate fees. The real opportunity is to use technology in ways that help consumers form healthy habits, to help them automate some of the difficult tasks associated with saving money and budgeting. If you think about it, there's really a huge amount of what we call cognitive load associated with the task of trying to manage your money. And that's why we're seeing a huge trend towards automation in various sectors of consumer finance, including what Dyme is doing and companies like Digit and so forth. So our mission here is to try to take the worry out of financial services and help our younger consumers establish their financial health. So how it works at Chime is you download the app, you register, we provide you with a direct deposit form, which is the primary way that consumers or our members are getting money into their account. We'll mail you the physical Chime Visa debit card, which you activate. And then from there, you really use the app to manage all aspects of the account relationship, to find free ATMs, to pay bills, to track spending, and even to interact with our member services team. Moving on to our recent research, we recently did a study to learn about consumers and their attitudes around money, and we've published the first part of our report, which is focused on how they think about banking and what they really want and need in a bank. You can read the whole report on our blog, which is blog.chimecard.com, and we'll be publishing the next part of the report in the coming weeks, which has additional insights into how millennials are thinking about their money and budgeting and saving. But here were some of the key takeaways from part one, which we call the banking barometer. First of all, most would not recommend their bank to a friend. Number two, they prefer mobile and want to avoid bank branches. And the third big takeaway is that they overwhelmingly prefer debit versus credit cards, and they definitely want rewards on these debit cards. To dive into a little bit more detail on this next slide, we found that millennials aren't particularly happy with their current bank offering. We surveyed 1,200 millennials in the U.S., so there was definitely a wide range of banks represented in here. And this is really consistent with what we've seen in the past about millennials. There was a study called the Millennial Disruption Index that showed among younger consumers, they asked them what their most loved brands and their least loved brands are, and all of the top 4 banks in America were among the 10 least favorite brands, not just financial services brands, any brands. They were all among the top 10 least loved brands, primarily due to fee structure, service, and a lack of innovation. And when we ask these consumers about how they want to manage their bank accounts, they're overwhelmingly telling us that they would prefer to interact with their bank through a mobile app or through their website. 88% said that they'd rather avoid visiting the bank branch entirely, which bodes well for mobile-first services like ours. And it's interesting because, even simple use of mobile technology in banking is lacking in our perspective. One thing that we do at Chime is we send our consumers a notification with every transaction. And they love this because it keeps them on top of what's going on with their account. And again, the primary reason that consumers have shifted to debit is for control versus credit cards. And so that sort of notification provides them with a feeling of even greater control. These sorts of alerts are also important from a security perspective because we believe the best way to avoid fraud is to be vigilant and know what happens in your account the minute it happens. And we don't believe that you should need to get calls from your bank and telling you that unusual activity may or may not be happening in the account. You should know anytime a transaction is happening into your account, and that's definitely what younger consumers are looking for. So with Chime, you get notifications every time your card gets used, a bill payment is made, a direct deposit into your account, and so forth. And then to wrap up, as we've seen in a lot of other research, millennials overwhelmingly prefer debit. They sometimes choose credit, and if they do, it's primarily for the rewards element of it. And we believe that at Chime, there's an opportunity to offer the best of both. More specifically, the research found that 70% of millennials would prefer rewards with a debit card, but most consumers aren't getting a reward program with their primary card. And again, if you want to dive into a little bit more of this research, you can check it out at chimecard.com. And with that, I will pass it on.
Great. This is Joseph Prather, founder, CEO of Dyme.co. Glad to be here with everyone. Great discussion so far. I'm going to focus on some of the soft sciences in terms of this user group. I'll start with a little intro about myself and about why I created Dyme, how it came to be. So personally, I was born into basically the culture of poverty, right? Teenage mom in Kentucky, raised by my grandparents, hardworking people that never could really get ahead. They had jobs, but they could really never get ahead, right? And so what I realized about my own behavior, about everyone around me's behavior, is that when you can't get ahead, you tend to focus on the short term, right? You self-soothe. You go to Starbucks for too many lattes. You go to Walmart or Target for 2 things, and you come out with 10, right? And so when I started looking into the millennials as a cohort, I realized that they have a very disempowered attitude of money. I mean, I think some of the previous slides have demonstrated that, right? And, it's no surprise that banks don't seem to have the answer. That's why we're all here, right? There seems to be a disconnect. A lot of these stats I won't waste too much time on a lot of these stats. They've been thrown around a lot, and on this call as well, 1 in 3 are open to switching banks in the next, 90 days. 53% really don't see any differentiation between their bank and another, right? So there's something that's just missing the point here, right? So what Dyme does, based on all this information, is I just took a real step back and tried to think, how can I design a service that is just useful, right? I try to put everything out of my mind, just what is useful. So I thought, where's the best place to reach these people? And so that is text messaging, right? This is where their friends are. This is where their family is. It's not primarily an app. We do have an app, but our main way of communicating with these people are through text messaging, right? And then also we feel that they as well, so I'm 39, right? I'm what's considered millennial-minded, right, which means I have a lot of these similarities to millennials, even though I'm a little bit older. So I'm able to use some of my own judgment and then, interview other people to come up with this. But what we came to realize is that tone is really important, right? What is an appropriate tone for a service like Dyme that helps people start a savings habit using text messaging? So, sorry, I need to back up just a bit to explain the service a little more. So what Dyme does is we do turn spenders, people who have the short-term mentality, into savers, people with a longer view of money, right? And we do this sending text messaging. A user links a bank account. It could be any checking account, right? And they link it, and we create an account on their behalf. and the user sets a goal. It could be $1,000 for a new MacBook. It could be $500 to go to a music festival with friends. Some little carrot, right, that we can dangle in front of them and say, hey, save for this, right? And it's really less about that item they're saving for and more about starting the long-term habits, right? So basically we text them a few times a week and say, hey, hope you're having a great week. Text yes to save $20 now towards your goal, right? And it's that simple. Over time, the user, we show them the results. We say it's been 6 weeks and you've already saved, $400, and this is what a savings habit feels like, right? So that's the basic Dyme service, right? I'm going to go ahead and skip this slide about millennials. I think we've covered a lot of this, right? In terms of their habits and what they're looking for. I'm going to read part of this manifesto because this is a good segue into how getting into the mind of a millennial, right? So on the manifesto you see, if I see one more Instagram picture of a friend on a dream vacation, my head's going to explode. I want that very, very expensive bike. No, I need that bike. I see people around me buying cool things, new clothes, going on trips, having these experiences. How do they do it? Are they drowning in debt? I know I need to save more. I just don't see where to find this cash, right? So this shows two things. It shows this powerlessness with money, and it shows these intense desires, right, that we're such a brand-centric culture, such a aspirational-driven culture, especially this group. Okay, I'm going to switch over, and you can see some of these brand imagery, right? So another interesting dichotomy about millennials that we've noticed, and when I say we work with an ad agency. We formed a really early ad agency partnership almost from day one because we realized that really getting into the head of these users is really paramount to develop a system that goes beyond the surface level of engagement with them. So if you look, you see 4 friends jumping into a lake. You see an Apple Watch, an iWatch. You see a MacBook. You see a cool bike with a nice lady sitting on it, and the same with a guy. Very bike-centric, right? Just the idea of a bike sometimes is really indicative of this culture. You see a music festival, right? It's kind of hazy, it's kind of relaxed, it's chill, right? So those are a lot of the keywords that when I think of this group and what we've realized is kind of core to them, right? There's an effortlessness, there's an appearance of not trying too hard, right? And so designing an app for millennial, we have to embody that ourselves. We can't try too hard. It has to be somewhat effortless. We can't throw too many things at them, right? So let me hop over here. So you'll see an example of a text you get from us, right? So we try to engage these people, give them a surprise element, but also still be appropriate to Dyme. We're not trying to be their coolest best friend. We're trying to add just a little fun in their life while we help them accomplish something that's important to them, all right? So you see here, select your Dyme voice. Text 1 for standard. Text 2 for 80s aerobics instructor. Think Richard Simmons type. 3 for a sad high school teacher, right, whose best days are behind them. 4 for a really terrible parent, right? So we feel like these are safe places to play where we can, do these text prompts in a unique way. So number 4, terrible parent. You'll get a text like this. Why can't you be more like your sister? Text save 20 to save $20 now because I said so, right? The user simply texts back save 20. That money gets moved from their originating checking account to this account that we've held on their behalf. And that's where the savings process starts, okay? So for us, it's really a matter of how, not what, right? It's what we are doing is pretty obvious. We're helping them start a savings habit. We're using text. We're using fun voice. But the how is where I would encourage deeper discussion and just more investigation. And how do you find the right person to develop those solutions on behalf of a certain financial institution or a service, right? So back to this. What is Dyme's role here? How do we approach these users, right? So we talk about, internally on our team, we talk a lot about subtleties of content, right? What is jokey and fun but not inappropriate? What's trying too hard, right? What's not believable, right? And we honestly feel that this can't be done by committee. There has to be some risk-taking. There has to be an almost creative/artistic element to this. And so there's going to be some misses, right? But it's the same with graphic design, right? So if you, download the Dyme app or look at the Dyme.co website, you'll see that, we have some bold choices, right? And these choices are this age group tends to really enjoy those risks, right? There's not a high level of judgmentalness about it, but if they see these cues like design cues, word cues, almost vibe cues, they take you as as appropriate to their lives, right? So I'm going to finish up by talking about their lives just one more time, and then I'll hand it off. So I feel like just on a really grand scale, what a lot of millennials are experiencing is that they have a lot of fatigue with being sold to, right? They don't really buy this messages, right? They don't respond so well to selly. It's almost like you have to present something cool and let them discover it, right? And what this does is this allows them to feel like we're putting their priorities first to help them improve their lives and what they want to do, as opposed to, here's this off-the-shelf thing that we want you to buy, 3 easy payments. It's kind of the opposite paradigm of that, right? These users don't really buy into a lot of higher-up structures, right? They're very much think about farmers markets, think about farm to table, think about riding a bike instead of a car. Even within the mainstream crowd of millennials, they have a real kind of do-it-yourself mentality, even though they might not do things themselves, right? They're attracted to the idea of something handcrafted, of something curated, of something unique, right? Think keywords I always think about: open source, open-ended, flexible, simple, right? So that's the how and why and the what of how we've arrived at Dyme. Happy to answer questions later on, but I'm going to hand it off back to Penny.
Great. Thank you so much. These are two really interesting companies, and I really appreciate you guys joining us. Just a couple follow-ups for both of you. Joseph, you mentioned that you have these really interesting voices, the 80s aerobic instructor, the sad high school teacher, the bad parent. How do you develop that content? Are you constantly creating new harassing messages from these voices that you've had?
Yes, we have quite the spreadsheet going, right? We're constantly playing with new voices and the best way to put them out, So there might be a surprise channel where you don't know who you're going to get, right? We're actually, this weekend, we're going to Boston to work with 2 behavioral economists, one from UCLA, one from Harvard Business School, to do publishable research on exactly this, on this engagement. How do we start to take these inclinations and these almost instincts that we've developed internally about user behavior and really put some science behind it and do some A/B testing to find out what the right kind of messages are, who's responding to the best ones, right? So it's a big team effort, and we're trying to be really creative and even scientific about how we develop these voices.
Okay, cool. And Chris, you mentioned that you're sending out alerts for everything. Is there any danger of alert fatigue, do you think, or is this cohort just nowhere near that place yet?
I think it's a personal decision. There are definitely some people that don't want to get alerts for every little thing that's happening, every social post, and every sort of thing. We give our members the ability to turn off alerts, but I think, and there was a question I saw that relates to are people just have too many apps on their phone, and is it going to be difficult to kind of break through the clutter? And there's no question. I mean, I look at my phone. I've got 5 or 6 screens of different apps with folders, and it's crazy. But we don't look at ourselves as an app. We are providing the core bank account for consumers, and designed a service that makes it really easy to manage all on your phone. And we believe that alerts are a key part of that. Certainly we hear that from our consumers, that's one of the great things that they find from our service is just having the awareness and understanding. So I think there's certainly some risk of, just there's so many apps you can forget about stuff, but people don't really forget about where their direct deposit goes to. And that's where we kind of fit in the consumer relationship.
And can I just ask both of you, how do you reach out and get in front of millennials? I mean, what kinds of, are you doing some interesting like digital marketing, or do you go to events, or do you do any advertising? Or?
Sure, this is Joseph. For us, it's putting possible aspirational goals in front of the right user in a digital channel, right? So we did an early test on Facebook, right? And we realized that single women, 22 to 32, if we were to serve them an ad about marriage, weddings, rings, to someone who's single, in that age group and then likes one or two jewelry stores online, we found that this is a really effective message, and our cost per click to get that user interested in Dyme was quite low. So for us, I always say when I talk to a room of people, every one of us here has these aspirational purchases or these aspirational experiences we want to do in our lives and have. And if we can use Facebook and digital channels that know things about these people, we can put the message forth, hey, we can help you get what you're looking for.
Excellent. Anything to add, Chris?
Yeah, we find we do some online advertising, and we get quite a few customers through that channel. But increasingly, we're getting more and more through word of mouth, and from referrals is extremely important to us. I think the fact that it's easy to share Chime with friends and family through your experience with the mobile app, and then actually the Chime card itself is physically in your wallet, and when you present it, oftentimes people will give you a compliment about how cool it looks, and people will ask about it. So we get a lot of folks just through kind of word of mouth and PR initiatives as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, last question to the two of you from me, and then we'll go to our sponsor and to our Q&A. We're getting really interesting questions from the audience, so we definitely want to make sure we get to that. You hear from different sources, different surveys and anecdotes and such, this generation is more idealistic than the ones that came before it. Do you guys see that in real life, and do you try to play to that, or how do you think companies like yours can kind of tap into that part of the zeitgeist?
We definitely find, this is Chris, we definitely find that the values that a company has is extremely important to this consumer segment, and the sort of brands that they identify with. We do a number of campaigns that we call Chime In campaigns, whether it be for hunger or for education, and we provide our members with the opportunity to support various organizations. We did something with Nepal, and with every donation that a member did, we would provide some support and some part of the cash donation as well. So we find that our consumers are definitely responding to opportunities like that to give to the American Red Cross or you name it. It just feels like a more personal brand and one that they feel more of affinity and a likeness to.
This is Joseph from Dyme. There's a really interesting Instagram account that kind of pokes fun at millennials, but also shows some of the, I think, are their best qualities. It's Socality Barbie, Cocality Barbie, and it's been written up in a lot of press. And she's kind of wistful, kind of indie, and she does a lot of, walking in the woods, taking pictures of her feet, or enjoying the sunset, right? And it's really easy to poke fun at this, but at the same time, it really points to something that's very core and in a good way, I think, about this group, and that is they're exploring, right? They're trying to have their own experiences, and I think that's really, really powerful. And so what Dyme tries to do is just enable that without being forceful. Let them tell us what's important to them, right? Maybe suggesting a few things, but really allowing for this exploration to occur. And I think that, I think this age group is really important to them, but I think it's also spreading to other age groups, like even myself, 30s and 40s parents in my social group. They're starting to exhibit a lot more of these behaviors as well. And I think that's a powerful trend to ignore.
Sure, that makes sense. All right, great. We're getting a lot of great questions from the audience. Please keep sending them in. We're going to have a nice meaty Q&A session shortly. Now I'd like to go to Sarah from our sponsor, Spark Central, who's going to tell us a little bit about what her company is doing. Sarah?
Thanks so much, Penny, and this is all great stuff. I'm going to go follow SoCality Barbie right now because that sounds funny. Thanks for the tip. So my name is Sarah Carter, and I head up customer success at Spark Central. And Spark Central is a customer engagement platform and experience platform. So I'm going to talk about customer service, the customer service piece of this, and how customer service in the digital and mobile age, why companies need to rethink the way they provide service. Spark Central's mission is to create a world where excellent customer experiences are the norm, not the exception. When customers reach out, they want to be engaged with on the same channel or medium that they reached out on. They don't want to explain their story or their situation repeatedly to various people on the other end who seemingly and are likely clueless about who they're talking to and whether that person has already contacted their company before. So think about when you or anyone calls a customer service line. Your experience is probably going to look something like this. First you hit a phone tree. You press 1 for this, you press 2 for that, and eventually you just keep repeatedly smashing 0 to get to an operator until finally a robot says that you're being transferred to a representative. So you're transferred, you're listening to the 40-minute flute solo, and then finally you get a voice on the other end and you get to speak to somebody who ends up transferring you to another representative where you have to go through that whole song and dance again. Everyone's very familiar with this. Everyone hates it. This is a broken process. And on mobile, it's really not that much different. I'm not sure about Chime, but if every experience I've had, if a mobile app even has a contact option, it usually looks something like this. There's phone numbers, there's sometimes a physical address, there's an email address. This is really not that helpful. This is essentially giving the consumer a task, and it's telling them that their desire to get in touch is possible, but not in real time and not on their terms. This is what's driving more than 67% of consumers to turn to social media for customer service because social is a real-time channel. This is being driven, of course, by millennials, but that percentage is only growing, and it's extending beyond millennials, too. Today's innovative companies are focusing on engaging with consumers in real time. The expectations have never been higher. Think about all of the services and technology available that make consumers, and especially millennials, obsessed with having instant gratification. Services like Google Shopping Express, Amazon same-day delivery, they're going to use drones soon to do this. Text messaging itself, even your phone or computer's connection to a data service. If you get stuck waiting for Facebook or a website to load on your phone or your computer for more than even a few seconds, you're already getting frustrated. As product and service offerings become flat across industries, customer service will become the differentiator and what will drive loyalty. So when companies and brands can make connections and build relationships with their customers in real time, then they win. So Spark Central is working to solve for these broken processes by partnering with companies to power their real-time engagement with consumers over text-based mediums such as social media channels and in-app messaging, and to provide the tools to power great customer experiences. So we're thrilled to be able to sponsor today's webinar and would love to chat more if you want to talk about creating those experiences. All the information is right here. And thanks so much for letting us be a part of this. Thanks. Back to you, Penny.
Thanks, Sarah. Interesting stuff. Okay, great. So now we're going to go to Q&A with the audience. We have a number of really good questions. Please feel free to keep sending them in. We do have a good expert panel today. So first question we're going to put out to our speakers is around how many active members do you both have, and what is the annual burn rate per member? Joseph and Chris, can either both of you answer that, even in rough terms, if you don't want to give an exact number?
Sure, this is Joseph. For us, it's we're very early. We're in a public beta, and our goal is to have 2,000 users by the end of the year. We're on track for that, but at this point, we're very early.
This is Chris. We're a private venture-backed company. We don't talk about all those details. The last time we did announce was probably 3 or 4 months ago. We disclosed that we had over 50,000 accounts, and we have tens of thousands that are active.
Okay, that's quite.
Oh, and in terms of we don't have a burn rate on our accounts. We have a positive gross margin business already. So the unit economics of this business are actually quite compelling.
Okay. All right. Our next question is, do you see a difference between millennials who have full-time jobs and their spending habits versus those who are juggling part-time jobs? Have either of you been able to analyze that a little bit?
We definitely see a big pickup of activity on payday, and we've got a mix. I would say more of our consumers are getting paid, twice a month, but we do have some folks that have multiple sources of income, and that consumer segment tends to be a little bit more transient. But overwhelmingly, we're seeing that the folks that are getting that regular every 2-week direct deposit are doing thousands of dollars of direct deposit and using it for really all of their financial management and payments, paying bills, and their cell phone bill and cable and rent and so forth. So clearly the folks that are getting that regular larger paycheck are using us for an even wider range of payments.
Okay. And we're experiencing similar things, right? It's we see a lot of users that we're their first touch for any kind of save funds, right? And so that slope of the on-ramp, the size of those trading wheels vary, based on part-time employment versus full-time.
Okay. Our next question is, what is the adoption of text banking? Joseph, what are you seeing so far?
Right. There are different services, different banks, I've noticed have some adoption of that, right? Often it's within a bulkier product, right? So I think the level of the engagement, it just varies all over the place in the implementation. It's back to the how it's done, not what is done.
I think I think a lot of banks provide alerts, but not that many let you actually text back. I know U.S. Bank does. I think USAA, a handful probably do. Chris, any thoughts on what you're seeing?
Yeah, we're not doing. This is Chris from Chime. We're not doing much in the way of text-based alerts. We do have a chat or kind of member services feature that is very text message-like, and we see an overwhelming amount of consumers interacting with us that way. I mean, the reality is this customer segment would really prefer to not have to talk to somebody, and if you're talking to somebody, then you're probably oftentimes you're doing something wrong. So we're not seeing text messages, but and we're not offering that, but we definitely have a lot of interaction through the app and through chats and messages through the app.
Okay, cool. This next question, Chris kind of addressed in his comments, but Joseph, I'm wondering what you think. The question is there any sense that millennials or all of us are over-apped, which might present a risk to those trying to create a long-term relationship?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's. I think it's pretty evident to see, just the sheer number of apps. The fact that everyone you meet at a barbecue, somebody knows someone who's developing an app, right? And so, how do you stick out? It's always a question of how do you stick out, right? So, a unique interface, right? Someone described Dyme as the best interface is no interface, right? So, I think that's compelling. And in general, just how do you differentiate, right, with all these services that that are out there that are great to use for a day, a week. Much like Chris was saying, this is part of his, part of people's real core financial. And if you can make your service part of that core financial, people are going to come back to you over and over. But it's back to the Steve Jobs thing. We make tools as humans. How do we make tools that are uniquely useful and cut above the other gazillion things out there, right?
Sure. The endless question. All right, our next question actually is for you again, Joseph. It's how does Dyme work with the savings component? Is it the user's own savings account, or does Dyme take the money and hold it?
Right. So we create an account through our banking partner on the user's behalf, right? So a user, 1 in 3 millennials don't even have a savings account that they're actively using. That's the data that I don't know the source offhand, but I can get that. So we feel like it's very valuable to be able to create that account for the user.
And do you have a specific bank you work with, or?
Yeah, it's through a payments company, and I'm happy to answer those kind of questions offline. Sure.
Okay. All right. The next question is around trust and security. With so many different apps that ask for bank account information, how do you build the right amount of trust and security for people to use either Dyme or Chime? Chris, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to have a product that is safe and secure. So our account is FDIC insured, and you've got Visa zero liability protection, and you need to be clear to consumers that security is not an afterthought. So all of that is just kind of table stakes to be able to have a product that people will trust, and then you need to back it up with being transparent in how you present fees and being super responsive in customer service. And at Chime, we just focus on making sure people understand that we really are a different type of bank account, and we want to be seen as an organization that has your back. And we know that from research that a lot of particularly younger consumers just don't feel that way because of the way that a lot of the big banks have set up their fee structures and just pages and pages of fees that are really difficult for people to understand. So by being transparent, that's important. We also have a business model that's just very much aligned. Like we make money when consumers are making payments. It's primarily an interchange-based business model. So we get paid by Visa, and we only get paid if people use the card and the bank account. And so there's a lot of alignment there. We're not a model that's based on if something bad happens to you, then I benefit. So because we have aligned objectives, I think that also allows us to establish a relationship that's based on trust and partnership.
Sure. Joseph, anything to add?
I would, for us, it's, we're a technical communications platform, right? Where we're not doing the actual transfer of money. So the level of security that we work on in-house is different than, a full-fledged bank or a solution like that. So we rely heavily on, either our B2C partner or, potentially down the road white label partners to do their own due diligence and maintain their own security that they already are.
Okay. Our next question is, can any community bank participate in the Dyme program?
So we are talking to numerous institutions about first steps in working together. We are B2C focused, but community banks is definitely, they share a lot of the similarities in terms of agenda and helping people improve their financial situations that we do as a startup. So we're open to additional conversations, definitely.
Okay. Next question is for you, Chris. How does Chime see increased competition from banks like Bank Mobile, which is Customers Bancorp's millennial brand, Citi's FinTech approach, which is their Citi's new division, which is focused on digital banking? Do you even look at that? Are those like your top competitor? Or who do you even look at as your top competitors?
Well, we think if you look at the research, there's no question that the lowest hanging fruit for us are consumers that are dissatisfied with big banks. So with more startup mobile-centric offerings, we obviously look at those guys, and a lot of them have a lot of great features and functionality, and so a lot of that stuff is impressive. But we really look at ourselves as not just a bank brand, but more of a lifestyle brand and one that you feel a close connection to. And like I said earlier, like someone who, an organization that has your back and something that you connect with. So, and we do that in how we price our products, how we present the user experience, what we talk about on our blog. It's not just that we added X, Y, and Z feature, but we also talk about things that we know are important to our customer base and aligns with the values that these younger consumers have. So there's obviously thousands and thousands of banks out there, but I think we believe that the largest opportunity is to bank these consumers that are frustrated with the big banks.
All right, this next question is for you as well, Chris. Do you see in the future expanding your product to more sophisticated banking needs such as mortgages and auto loans? And what do you think the adoption rate would be? It seems like a lot to ask, but are you thinking of along these lines?
Yeah. Our focus right now is around the core bank account and checking and savings sorts of offerings. I would say in the short to medium term, we would be more focused on partnerships and exposing our members to especially some of the exciting new services out there that are helping consumers with lending and credit and providing services that are really helping our consumers get ahead. So also, exposing them to various services to help them with investments and so forth. So I would say the short term would be more focused on partnerships with companies that share our values and provide ancillary financial services that we won't be getting into in those categories I just mentioned. But over time, we wouldn't rule out providing those sorts of services on our own.
Okay. And Joseph, this next one is for you. With Dyme, does the savings account earn interest, and if so, how much?
Not currently for the user. We are able to do some revenue share on the back end. We are in due diligence with a well-known top 4 banking partner to maintain our accounts where there would be some interest opportunity for the user and us as well.
Okay. All right, cool. Now we have a multi-part question for both of you. What type of security tools do Chime and Dyme utilize for onboarding? Do you use traditional services such as FIS, like FICO and Experian? How do you handle millennials who do not have credit files or perhaps do not have good credit to get approved?
We utilize a lot. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. We use a service called Ideology right now in partnership with our bank, and we're opening up bank accounts, so we need to make sure that we comply with the Patriot Act and BSA and AML requirements. So we're primarily using that. We need to collect Social Security and name, address, and make sure that it's a real person. And so we're definitely vigilant on that front. And we find that we actually do a really good job of successfully getting our members through the application process and being able to open up accounts for them.
Okay.
And on our side, a lot of the onus is with our banking partner currently, which uses a similar service that Chris mentioned. And then on our end, to ease onboarding and to securitize that and to tokenize it, we use Plaid, which is a Yodlee competitor that does a lot of verification, but we collect all their KYC, AML information as well and pass that to our partners as well.
Okay. And Joseph, next question's for you. What are your biggest challenges in talking to community banks?
That's a good question. I think every legacy system is different, so the implementation is just a different implementation, right? For us, it's a small team, and we're early, right? So making sure our endpoints, and our APIs are matching up and integrating with each individual financial institution is like the biggest juggling act for us in terms of maintaining a B2C focus, but being open to these white label opportunities.
Okay.
So technical, basically.
All right, next question for both of you. Can you share what the average age is of your users and annual income? Are these apps appealing basically to low-income people or moderate, or are you getting some affluent people as well?
For Dyme, we're seeing a lot of 25 to 35. Around 50K tends to be a sweet spot for us. Not a huge income level at this point. These are people early on, but that's about a very general average for us.
We're in a pretty similar boat. I'd say that the core Chime member is between 24 to 31. That's the overwhelming amount of folks that are signed up and using us as their primary bank account and getting direct deposit. On the income side, the average is between about $35,000 to $75,000 a year of income. So, we're typically not providing banking services for people that are making, $150,000 and have more complex financial needs. It's typically people in their, first few jobs and early in their career and really just want basic banking that appeals to them, that is designed for the world that they grew up in, which is mobile first.
Okay. This one's for you too, Chris. What kind of rewards do you offer with the debit card? Sorry.
Well, we've built a really interesting platform here where we're connected into the point of into the authorization stream of every transaction, so we can trigger rewards in real time and provide cash back instantaneously. So there's services out there that you can sign up for that scrape statements and then let you know that you can give a credit back to somebody's account, 45 days later or whatever. And that's just not really that compelling to this kind of instant gratification society that we live in. So we do a wide range of rewards, either at individual restaurants or locations or even by category as well. And we use them for a variety of reasons, some ways to engage and incentivize our members to take certain action, and also to reward our members for being great customers. And so, for example, the rewards that we do are highly personalized. If we see that you really enjoy going to Blue Bottle Coffee and we've seen you do that 5 times over the last month, we may just give you $1 or $2 the next time that you swipe there, and we'll promote that in the app. And then the moment you swipe, you'll get an instant $1 cash back into your account. So it's very wide ranging. It's not huge dollar rewards. You're not saving $50 when you go out shopping, but it tends to be just kind of small dollar tokens of gratification to members for using our service, and also just to demonstrate that we're not your typical bank account.
Okay, interesting. Next question is for both of you. What are your thoughts on adding financial education as part of the app?
Yeah, this is Joey. That's one of our 3 T's: text, tone, and teach, right? So, we see a customer journey that for the customer we're seeing. Short-term is on the left side of the chart, and then a long-term responsible saver is on the right side. Talking about our differentiation between the competitors, we have some competitors that they tend to focus on automatic and automated savings, which gets some money in the account, but it doesn't provide the actual behavioral nudges to elongate their time horizons the way they think about money. So that's core for us.
Yeah, I mean, within our app and consumer experience, we're more focused on trying to make this sort of things as automated and easy as possible. I think people talk a lot about, wanting to have financial planning tools and actively manage them, but the reality is that most people just don't really engage that way. So we'd rather get people on a path to doing this in saving money in an automated way and reducing the cognitive load associated with trying to save money or put money away into a savings account. Those are the sorts of things that we'll be focused on going forward, just to make it as easy as possible to develop these sort of healthy habits.
Okay. And here's an interesting question. How do you ensure that users' issues are resolved in real time, regardless of the time of the complaint? So I guess if someone complains at 2 or 3 in the morning, do you guys have a process for that?
Users can always reach out to us with a help command or info@dyme.co. we're in our beta, so obviously those functions are fully built out on an automated, at the moment time. But all that means for our users that they're not able to save, until we're able to respond. So it's an inconvenience, but one that we'll resolve down the line.
And we've got our member services desk is live, 7 to 7, 7 days a week. And so if it's 2 in the morning, we wouldn't answer immediately, but we have a host of best-in-class new CRM technologies that allow us to actively manage consumer questions or any issues that need to be resolved. And we've been pleased to find that consumers have been really pleased with the level of service we provide. Everybody speaks English, and we're responsive and friendly and fun, and I think that's reflected in the high NPS scores that we've seen among our members.
And Chris, this next question is for you. Do you have a corresponding mobile website, desktop, and tablet application, and do you know what the usage is across these channels from highest to lowest?
Yeah, like our research showed, the overwhelming amount of usage is through our app, but all of our websites are designed to be mobile friendly and responsive, which is extremely important, especially for some of the initial interactions that consumers have. Their first exposure to us oftentimes is through mobile web, so we need to make sure that experience is very tight and easy and well thought through. We do have a website that you can log into. The functionality is almost exactly the same. There's a few extra things you can do on our website, like get statements and so forth. But the vast majority of our consumers are primarily interacting with us through our mobile app. If you looked at the incidence of actual interactions with us, the percent that happens through our app would be well over 90%.
Okay, great. Well, our hour is up, so I would like to thank our sponsor, Spark Central, and on behalf of American Banker and our speakers, Joseph Prather and Chris Britt, I'm Penny Crossman. I want to thank you all for joining, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.